Bitcoin seasonality trap. September is about to start tomorrow, and this is historically seen one of the worst months for Bitcoin. So that is exactly what we need to discuss within today's update video. Why do I think this time it could be a little bit different, and I will show you exactly why based on the most important data points and of course the latest Bitcoin price data. We will take a deep dive in towards exactly that, but we will also take a dive in towards the latest news hitting the market, important upcoming events for next week, and of course Ethereum and some altcoins. So from there guys, make sure to first of all subscribe to the channel and watch and like my latest YouTube videos, and then we can dive in towards the most important content. Since Bitcoin is now in a seasonality period where it usually sees weak performance, just like we can see in the 2021 cycle and the 2017 cycle, we saw weak performance in exactly that period. And that's why most of the market is expecting that once again. If you take a dive in towards the Bitcoin monthly returns, it does show that September is usually not a good month, definitely not during those post-halving years. In 2021, about a minus 7% return, and in 2017, also about a minus 7% return. For Ethereum, it is even looking more worse, but that is something we will talk about later in this update video. But yeah, it doesn't look too good for Bitcoin. But there are also some differences which we need to discuss first, because during those post-halving years in 2021 and also 2017, we did saw a green August, kind of a very big green August, before that negative September. Now we are seeing a negative August, and maybe we could see a green September. I do actually think that the chances of that are quite big. Maybe we could see a correction coming in towards September and then eventually heading higher. But does it even matter if you, for example, take a look in towards October, which is usually one of the most bullish months for Bitcoin, with amazing returns definitely during those post-halving years. So in my opinion, your time in the market is simply going to be super important, and you should be aware of the fact that selling your holdings in September is going to be one of the worst decisions you could possibly make inside of this market, because the seasonality is also going to see a huge upside potential turn later in this cycle in Q4, like we have been predicting on the channel. Because we did make some videos about this, about the crypto ghost month and the crypto September trap. About the ghost month, because here I have some updated data about the ghost months and the Bitcoin performance during those months. For the people that don't know what this is exactly, first of all, I highly suggest that you should watch exactly this video here. But just in short, this is basically a month where the Asia markets are getting very inactive because of their beliefs, and basically it means that Bitcoin and crypto do see worse performance than usual during these periods of ghost months. But the most important thing in my opinion is that the volatility and also the drawbacks are getting smaller and smaller each year. In my opinion, two big reasons for this. First of all, the Bitcoin volatility itself is falling every year basically, and also the Asia market isn't the main driver for Bitcoin and crypto anymore. I do think it's much more US based, definitely since the last 2 years. So that's why I think the drawdown we have seen, because we have seen a correction of about 5%, is already getting close to somewhat of a bottoming point probably, because we can just see it on the chart. The Bitcoin performance, the drawdowns each ghost month just get smaller, smaller and smaller. So that is going to be hugely important to understand. Of course, we could see a larger correction still, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. Maybe, but I don't think it's necessary. Also, because we have so much bullish Bitcoin charts stacking up now, while the majority is getting bearish now, we have a lot of bullish Bitcoin price data stacking up. First of all, we have this massive CME gap from last weekend, which still isn't filled up yet. And eventually, I do think that CME gap will fill up this bull market. And then you are looking at quite a big move all the way back to 117,000 US dollars. Also, we have Bitcoin retesting this super important support level, just like we saw 2 times before, basically retesting the previous highs and eventually seeing a huge bounce from there. I do think this could happen once again for Bitcoin, basically initiating that final wave to the top side. That is going to be hugely bullish. I do think that is going to be possible, definitely for that upcoming Q4. Also, Bitcoin with the global liquidity is now seeing a major divergence, but we do know it usually always tends to catch up with that global liquidity, and there is still one big move left to the upside for Bitcoin with the global liquidity basically. So I do think yet that is going to happen once again. Also, Bitcoin trading in this falling wedge, which is a bullish bias pattern at important support. So we could see quite a positive reaction for Bitcoin from exactly there. Maybe a little bit of a drawback at the beginning of September. And then eventually I do think big moves higher because the market is still looking bullish. We are still in a bull market. The Bitcoin liquidation heat map is also showing some interesting stuff. Basically, most and a lot of the liquidity is stacking up above Bitcoin, but we should also be honest with ourselves. There's also some liquidity stacking up at the downside here. So maybe Bitcoin will grab that liquidity first and then eventually move higher to grab the liquidity at the top side. So just in short, I do think Bitcoin is still looking bullish and the seasonality should not be too important for you if you are not going to take over leveraged positions, because I do think eventually we are going to see great performance in the ending stage of exactly this year. Also, we have a lot of important data coming this week. First of all, Monday the markets are closed, so be aware of exactly that. But basically next week we have a lot of important data dropping about the labor markets. We have the initial jobless claims, we have the ISM manufacturing employment, non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate. So because we do know the Fed is slowly pivoting to a more labor market based approach, for example those rate cut decisions, this is going to be super important data for those rate cut probabilities, currently at 86%. If we could see a move to the top side for those probabilities, we could also see a positive reaction for risk assets like Bitcoin, crypto, Ethereum. I definitely do think for Ethereum it's going to be a huge factor next week. So be aware of exactly all these dates. Also make sure to follow me on X because I will be updating all of you guys in real time about this important economic data dropping next week. And then guys, if you do want to trade Bitcoin and altcoins yourself, make sure to join our VIP Telegram group where me, Crypto Rover and 5 professional other traders are basically trading together, and we are probably going to take a lot of positions based on the upcoming data and volatility next week. So just make sure to join us in the private group or the public Telegram group. Traders have been sharing some nice info also on the Sunday once again, so make sure to check out those groups. I do think this is just a super important chart which shows where Bitcoin is trading at. This is a crucial point for Bitcoin. If you're going to break lower, I do think we could be falling towards the lower side of the previous range. If this is not going to be the case, we could see a reversal from exactly this level. So guys, make sure to join those groups if you don't want to miss out on any of our trades. Then, because this video is a lot about the seasonality, I also want to discuss the exact seasonality for Ethereum. And then it's going to be important to look at this average line. This is the average seasonality for Ethereum, and like we can see with also Bitcoin, usually in September, at the beginning of September, we do see a drop to the downside and eventually we start moving higher. So basically it's exactly the same for Ethereum as Bitcoin, but Ethereum does see the most bullish price action always in the ending phase of the cycle, like those last 2 to 3 months. That's where Ethereum will truly start going the most parabolic, and also altcoins will exactly follow there. The fuel for the next Ethereum rally is definitely there. Because also for Ethereum, a lot of short liquidity is stacking up at the top side. So basically the same situation as Bitcoin in my opinion. I do think this bull case is imminent, and we have been talking about this chart a lot, guys, so I don't want to repeat myself every single video, but I did sell a lot at that conservative case, and now I'm holding the rest of my Ethereum spot positions towards this bull case target of over $6,000. I do think that's going to be a realistic scenario for Ethereum in the ending stage of the cycle, and in that ending stage, so from this conservative case to that bull case, the money to be made with altcoins is going to be insane in my opinion. I do think the wealth effect is going to kick in there, so a lot of people are going to take profits on the Ethereum trade and then are going to start rotating more in towards altcoins, first in the large caps and then in the smaller caps. Others versus ETH is also seeing a kind of a reversal point at this downside RSI level, like we talked about a lot on the channel. Others versus ETH, so the smallest altcoins compared with Ethereum, priced against Ethereum, are getting heavily oversold. We were at the most oversold level ever since 2021, and now we are seeing the first uptick in bullish momentum to the top side. And if history is going to repeat here, we could see a massive move to the top side for smaller altcoins against the Ethereum price action, which is probably going to correlate with a huge altcoin season. So be prepared for exactly that. We are not trading in altcoin season yet, but in my opinion, we are getting super close here. So this is probably going to be one of your last chances to accumulate altcoins cheap. And guys, that was it for today's update video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's update video, and I will see you guys within the next update video tomorrow.